In this lesson, we're going to set up the dynamics for our chain. Okay, so to get this chain to rest properly, we need to go ahead and separate the different groups. Now you'll remember that we attach these in groups of 2 and then use the snapshot to create the rest of our links, so we need to ungroup these. Well, not ungroup, but let's actually detach these. Okay, so let's select our chains and let's hit 5 on our keyboard, and this is going to take us to element mode. And if we select one of these elements on our chain links, we can hit detach and then just hit OK. We're going to detach this as its own object, and we'll rename these later. Okay, so hit 5 again to turn off element mode. Select the next group, hit 5 again to turn on element mode, select 1, and then detach. Okay, hit 5 to turn that off. Select our next group, hit 5. Select that chain link, detach. Okay, and then we'll hit 5 to turn that off. I'm going to repeat these steps all the way up this chain link. So I'm going to hit 5, select 1, detach, hit 5 to turn that off, and select the next group. Okay. Now we want to have all of these chain links as their own individual object, just because that's going to create a better dynamic system. If we had these in groups of 2, we'd have a very rigid chain, and we'd probably get a lot of bouncing around, and it wouldn't ever really rest. So we want this chain to look as nice as possible. Okay. Go to element mode, detach that one. Okay, skip to the next group, and detach. All right. Now these last two should already be detached there. Yep. Let's go ahead and select all of these chain links, and I'm going to hold down Control and do a marquee selection around those. And let's select these last two, and make sure that you deselect that line in the middle. And let's go to our selection sets, and let's create a selection set called chain_links. And I'm actually going to go ahead and actually delete that line out of there. I no longer need that. Okay, so let's go ahead and select chain links, and we're going to apply our dynamic settings to this. So let's go to dynamic rigid body type, and let's open up our Mass Effects tools, go to edit, and we're going to go ahead and let this start in, or just let it start simulating at the very beginning, so we'll keep that unchecked. Let's set our preset to steel, and then we're going to create a mesh type, and we're going to do a composite on this. Now composite is the only one that's going to allow us to have concave shapes, basically geometry that have holes in it like this chain link. Okay, so let's use composite. Let's take our shrink wrap up to 100 and then generate holes. And this should give us plenty of room for these chains to work and to basically lengthen out into a full extended chain. Okay. Now that we have that set up, we need to go ahead and set up our scene to allow these to rest so we can get them to start out in sleep mode. So let's go ahead and deselect these, and what I want to be dynamic in my scene are basically a couple of these pieces in these towers, the statues, and then the shackles and the chain links. So let's select our feet here, and I'm going to select a couple of these pieces in these towers, and I don't think I need that one. Let's select this one as well. And then let's select these pieces in this tower. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and create a selection set. Let's call this temp_static. Okay. Now, with these selected, let's go to our Mass Effects tools, go to Edit Panel, and let's switch these over to static. Right. We're going to allow those to just start in sleep mode. They're not going to move or anything like that. Okay, we should be good. Now, one thing that I do want to do is I want to take this one large piece right here. And I know that my chain is going to be bumping into this. and it's going to try to rest right on it. And sometimes shapes like this, these convex or concave shapes, where we use that composite physical mesh, tend to actually clip through this geometry even though it's set to static and its mesh type is set to original. So with this one, what I'm going to do is actually switch this over to convex, and I'm okay with the convex shape that's covering up this indentation here. Okay, this is just for the simulation portion of my chain. And I'm going to actually set up some of the parameters here, especially the inflation. And what inflation is going to do is basically take this physical mesh and offset it off of our geometry. So I'm going to take the inflation up, and you'll see that that's raising itself off of our geometry. And I'm going to go to about 2 on this one. I want to give it plenty of room to where my chains will actually bounce on that physical mesh and never clip through the actual geometry and causing an explosive type of result. Okay. So let's just keep that one the way it is. These should be okay. We won't have too much interpenetration on this one because most of the weight is going to be pulled over to this side because the shackle is pulled forward. Okay. All right, now what I want to do is I want to allow my chains to rest dynamically, but I have all of my objects in my scene are dynamic, and they're all going to be simulated even though they are set to rest and set to sleep mode and static and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and go to Tools, and let's open up our Scene Explorer. Okay. Now in here, what I'm going to do is basically select all of my geometry. So let's select box 02, and let's scroll all the way down to the bottom and hold down Shift and select that statue right foot 03, and I'm going to click on this checkbox. And what this is going to do is turn off all of my dynamics, all of my rigid bodies, and exclude them from the simulation. Now to give it just some time, okay, give it a little bit of time to run through, okay, and you should see all of these are unchecked with this sim enabled. Now what I'm going to do is just pull this down here, and let's select the objects we want to be in the simulation. So in our case, we're going to go ahead and use the temp static, okay, and we're going to grab that drop down list again, and we're going to hold down Control and select chain links, and then choose the shackles. Okay, now let's go back to our Scene Explorer, and with all of those selected, let's hit one of these checkboxes and enable that. Okay, and you'll see things like object 001, and those are actually supposed to be our chain links, and we'll take care of renaming those here in a little bit. Okay, so we've got our statues. Okay, we've got all these boxes. Okay, and these are part of our chain links as well. So now that those are enabled, let's go ahead and deselect those, and let's start our simulation. Okay, we'll let this play through. You'll see how that's working there. And we should be able to let this play, and because we've set up our dynamics and our static physical meshes up properly, especially on this corner where these chains are resting right on that, we should be able to let this play until it settles. But I don't want to just wait on it to settle. I'm going to actually stop the simulation when the chain is kind of like this really long U shape to where it looks like it's at naturally rested. And I'm going to pull up my Mass Effects tools, go to Tools, and I'm going to capture my transforms. Now let's capture our transforms of our chain links and our shackles. So capture selected, reset the simulation. Once that's reset, let's hit Start Simulation again. You'll see that the chain is a little more rested. It's not flopping around as much. We'll go ahead and we'll let this play through a little bit more. I'm going to hit stop, capture selected, reset simulation, start simulation again. Okay, I'm going to stop, capture selected, reset the simulation, and then I'm going to play it again. Okay, and I'm going to do this a couple of times until this chain looks almost perfectly still. I'm going to stop, capture selected, reset, and then start the simulation again. Let that run through for a couple of hundred frames. We'll stop, capture selected, and then we'll reset that animation or that simulation. Okay, we may have to do this a couple more times because I really want these chains to hold still. I want them to start out in our simulation in sleep mode, because if they don't, we'll notice that our towers begin to basically blow up again. So we've captured that, we've reset it, let's hit play. We've got just a little bit of swinging going on still, and we're getting really, really close here. Let's hit play, or stop, I should say. Capture is selected. Reset that simulation. Okay. Let's hit play one more time, just to look at our movement. And our chain should be holding perfectly still. Let's stop that. I'm going to capture selected just for good measure, and then reset that simulation. Okay. So we've done this part. We've got our chain settled. And what I want to do at this point is go ahead and reset my dynamic scene. And I just want to do a little bit of testing before we move on here. So let's actually go to our tools, explore scene. Let's select everything in this. So select the top, hold down shift, and then go all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to actually hit this include in simulation. And that should check everything. There we go. Let's close that down. And let's go to our selection sets. I'm going to go to that temporary static. And I need to set up their dynamics again. So let's go to edit. Let's set those to dynamic. Those are going to start in sleep mode. Okay. Concrete. Everything looking good. And one thing that I want to do is I want to actually change this back to its original. Okay. So I'm going to go to, you know what, let's keep it as convex. Let's just see what happens and just make sure that that's going to stay there. So let's just keep that right where it's at. Let's do let's go to our chain links, and with all of those selected, let's have them start in sleep mode. Okay. Make sure our shackles are still starting in sleep mode. Yep. Okay. So we've got all those set back to dynamic. Everything's starting in sleep mode. We've got everything included in our simulation again. And just to test, let me turn off kinematic on our ball, test ball. And let's set that to static for right now. And let's just start this simulation. Okay, I'm going to hit F4 to turn off the wireframe because that tends to speed up simulations a little bit. So let's just test to see what we have. Okay, it looks like everything is starting in sleep mode and everything is working great. Now, one last test. Let's take our sphere And we have it selected in our scene, so we can just go right up to our parameters. Just wait for this to unlock. Let that memory run through there. Now that this scene has unfrozen, we can go ahead and actually test out our bridge here. So let's select our kinematic ball and go to the Modify panel, and just make sure that that rigid body type is set to kinematic. Okay. Now, if you're having some trouble trying to get your scene to come back up, I know that this is very complex, and what I did is I went ahead and actually saved this scene as 15A_begin, so that way you can get to this point if you want to test it and then move on from here. So let's go ahead and select Start Simulation and just see that this is working properly. Okay, so our ball begins to simulate. You can see that our towers are taken out immediately. You can see that our statues are flying up into the air, the chains are staying together, and we can even see that these chains are influencing the statues as we go along here. Okay, looking really, really good. Really happy with the way this is falling apart. Nothing is just exploding and so violently that it just looks unnatural. Okay, our bridge is crumbling apart perfectly. We've got some towers that are still hanging around waiting to be collided with. Looks like this one's about ready to crumble. Okay, we can actually see that our statue has actually flown out of that shackle. That's okay. Just adds more to the excitement, I guess. Alright, so let's go ahead and actually stop this simulation. Now what I want to do at this point is I want to actually go ahead and finish off this course with showing you how to export this animation to keyframes. So the way that we can do this is we need to take our keyframes up, and let's say that we want, let's say, a 600 frame animation. So we're going to adjust that keyframe time on our timeline, and we're going to bring up our Mass Effects tools and go to the Tools panel, and then we'll just simply choose Bake All. Now this is going to go through a process, and this is probably going to take a little while to finish. So it's going to go through each and every frame and create a keyframe for every object in our scene. Okay, so just give this some time. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and then we'll take a look at what it looks like whenever it's finished. Okay, so now that this is finished baking, we can go ahead and actually hit play on our timeline and watch this keyframed animation. Okay, so you can see that that's going much faster simply because it's been baked into the timeline. Alright, so we have gone through a lot on Mass Effects. We have talked about as much as we can on these rigid bodies, and we've really taken a look at how we can take Mass Effects, put it into a project that we've thought of in our head, and gone through the planning process, gone through the execution process, how to take care of any bugs that are coming along, and we've really just taken a look at a solid pipeline for using Mass Effects inside of 3ds Max. All right, well, I've had a lot of fun with this lesson, with this entire course. I hope you have too, and remember, just do what you can with Mass Effects and create some really cool stuff, and put it on our forums. Let us see what you're coming up with. We're really excited to see that sort of stuff. So I'll see you guys next time.